Hi, this is Brendan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and I'm here with Adam Balderstone for another episode of Bedrock and Balderstone for our final episodes covering the second season of Torchwood. We will hopefully get into some other seasons down the road, but we're covering the last 3 episodes of the second season, which are Adrift, Fragments, and Exit Wounds. So Adrift is kind of a contained story, and Fragments and Exit Wounds are more connected, I would say. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, they're all a little on their own, but the last 2 tie in a lot more than the previous one, definitely.
Well, and the penultimate episode is definitely preparation for the final one.
Oh, it is. It's just,
even if it's not, like, I know what you're saying, because it doesn't really connect until the end, like until you realize what triggered all that. But it's like the giving the flashbacks of all the characters and their history. It's kind of setting everything up to be a big emotional ending.
Yes. Exactly.
So let's talk about Adrift first. This one, I don't know. I think we had talked about good X-Files episodes last time we were
did
on.
Yes.
And this seemed like another one like that. This seemed kind of like to have sort of that people are disappearing and there's a big mystery. It was like if you combined X-Files and 24, this is the kind of episode I think you would get, where Jack is keeping something from Gwen, and she's investigating this missing person, really as a favor to, I forget his name, but the policeman that she used to work with.
I now you bring it up. I have no clue what his name is. He's like this recurring character. I don't think his name is ever stuck in my head.
I think it's Andy. I think his name is Andy.
Yeah, now you've said it. Actually, it does come back to me. Andy. Yeah.
And it turns out there's a lot more to this missing persons case, and that what's going on is people are actually falling through the rift. And, one of the clues we get to Jack's knowledge is that he's on site on a camera during the night that that this young man disappears. And apparently the guy slipped through time and saw a dark star, and all kinds of horrible things. It's very Lovecraftian what he saw. And all the people that come back that they managed to rescue are scarred emotionally and physically in some way, and I mean in really like this is like horror levels of trauma that are going on. So the guy the guy that went missing, he the problem that he develops is he just screams for 20 hours a day, and it seems to be getting longer every day. And so Gwen tries to help by connecting him with his mother. We can talk about how well that goes or how well it doesn't go. And it becomes clear by the end of the episode that Jack was really, even though it seemed like he was trying to protect himself, he was really trying to protect Gwen, which is why he wasn't being straight with her about what was going on. And what was going on is he was taking all these people that had fallen through the rift, and whereas in the past Torchwood had just kept them imprisoned in Torchwood, he brought them to an island where they were cared for by nurses and things like that. So it's kind of like a sanitarium. But I don't know. How did you feel about the episode?
I had mixed feelings. I mean, it's definitely an episode that was engaging as I watched it. I mean, like you say, it is in a lot of ways like a good X-Files episode, but a lot of things for it didn't quite land for me at the end. I never quite, like, Jack keeping it a secret from everyone else in Torchwood never quite came together for me. I mean, that didn't work. I don't know, the reaction of the mother, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that.
I don't think her reaction didn't seem very believable to me.
No.
I thought that was not how a normal mother responds to that situation. I mean, it's awful, obviously, but it's better than the son being dead. And I think also the mother would have felt some responsibility to the son that she didn't seem to have in the episode. So I thought the episode was a very cynical take on motherhood in general.
It felt like going for a dark ending that really wasn't quite earned, because it's like she was a very apparently caring mother, and it's like it just that that abrupt change. Oh, now I know he's in pain. I don't want anything to do with him anymore. It just didn't.
It didn't make sense. I agree. The character that they presented to you was a woman who would have wanted to stay on the island and take care of him, and would have been, if she could hold out hope the way she had when he was missing, she could certainly hold out hope with him in that condition. So I didn't buy it one bit. An interesting thing about this episode, I completely forgot about this episode. It wasn't until they got to the sanitarium that I remembered this episode. I actually, midway through, I was like, maybe I skipped this episode because I don't remember any of this. I thought that I might have, like I think I originally saw this episode on Netflix or whatever stream service I had at the time, and I think that I was wondering, oh, maybe they didn't have this episode on for some contractual reason or something, and so I think. It was interesting to me, and then when the sanitarium happened, I was like, okay, now I remember. Now it's coming back to me.
Yeah, but it's funny because the two episodes we've compared to X-Files episodes are both ones that were pretty engaging in the moment, but they just have these certain flaws to them that didn't quite allow them to become classic ones. But yeah, with Adrift, I mean, it's a very cynical ending on one hand, but it's also a very tidy ending. It's like, oh, Jack was right all along, and it's like, I don't know. It would have been better if it had a very ambiguous ending. I feel like making it, it was just wrong to bring the mother in, was just, it's too clean.
Yeah. I agree. I think that's the big problem with the episode. Going back to the Jack thing. With Jack, I think what I assumed when I saw the episode was that he must have had a similar experience to what Gwen had, and that's what he was trying to save her from. But I think the problem with the episode, it's a problem that this show has. But frankly, it's to me, I've always assumed that this is a product of the writers being influenced by 24, because it's like so prevalent in 24, where the secret must be kept because it must be. Because people couldn't handle the truth. Do you know what I mean? There's that is, it's taken to ridiculous extremes in 24, and I feel like that's kind of what was going on here, because Jack could have easily said to her, look, I'm going to tell you what's going on here, and here's why we're doing it the way we're doing it, and Gwen would have totally understood him if he explained it properly to her. So
it's weirder. I mean, I haven't seen 24, but it's even weirder in Torchwood, because Torchwood has this running gag that everybody knows what Torchwood is anyway. And on Doctor Who, which is in the same universe, by this point in Russell T Davies wrote on Doctor Who, everyone on Earth is just kind of like, oh, we're going to be invaded by aliens again this Christmas. And so it's like this fanatical secrecy thing of blanking people's memories and stuff. It's like everybody knows.
Well, and also they're very selective about that. They do not. It's almost like they do it on a whim half the time. But the other thing is, I just think, for an organization like 24, not 24 for Torchwood, it makes no sense that he would keep them out of the loop when people are going missing through the time rift. That's a really crucial piece of information. Like, that's not small. Yeah. That's not a minor thing at all. And it's certainly something that's within their purview. He would want all of his team members to know about that, I would think. And so it's one of the things that Torchwood sometimes suffers from. And it's kind of the thing that's great about Torchwood and also a little bit horrible about Torchwood, is it never quite feels like a really professional operation. It always, it's sort of like I think we've said this before, but it feels like how an organization like this would be run if player characters were running the organization.
Yes.
And so and I think so. It's sort of like maybe this is sort of the writer's fantasy of what it would be. This is so it's sort of a conceit. It's not really a problem, but there are times when it gets too much, and I think this was one of them where it's like, well, he really should be telling people that they have folks going missing through this time rift, and that he also just the fact that, like, it's so obvious that if he doesn't tell Gwen and she's actively investigating this thing against, he knows her personality, he knows she's going to persist. I he's just setting him Torchwood up for a terrible misunderstanding that could result in catastrophe.
Yeah, I think in wanting to so adamantly shut everything down too. It's like, Tosh maybe could find some way to stop this from happening if you let her keep playing with it. It's like, okay, how do we counter this? How do we track people that have been pulled through the rift and pull them back right away? I mean, not that she necessarily could, but I don't know why you'd want to shut down that possibility. It's I don't know. It's yeah, I mean, I guess a good thing about this episode though is it does it did set me up for the Gray thing again, Jack's brother. Because I was thinking it was going to have something to do with his brother. It's like, people disappearing, but Jack's involved. It's going to be something to do with his brother. So it at least got my brain back on that topic before it actually becomes relevant again in the final 2 episodes.
Yeah, again, I mean, the episode's not a bad episode. It just wasn't.
No.
It just had some flaws in it, and it kind of had like a. I don't know if this came out around the same time. It kind of had like a little bit of a Castle Island vibe to it as well.
Castle Island?
Wasn't that the name of the movie with DiCaprio that Scorsese did a few years back?
Oh, Shutter Island. Shutter Island.
Shutter Island. Sorry. I don't know why I was thinking Castle Island. But I don't know. It just kind of had that kind of a vibe to me, and I thought that. I thought parts of it worked. Like when she went into the sanatorium, you were genuinely like, "What's going on?" Like the mystery was interesting. But
I mean, it's the emotional things that don't work with characters in the end is disappointing because everything leading up to that point is really interesting. So that's, I mean, like the mother, like I said, it's unrealistic the way she acts at the end because she was set up as a very plausible character earlier in it. So having her take that sudden arbitrary turn, this is terrible and you never should have told me. That's just like, well, I feel like you betrayed the entire character you carefully set up over the course of the whole episode.
Yeah, no. I think this is the kind of episode that I just didn't understand the mom's reaction at the end. I really had trouble. Like, I think on a number of levels, the fact that they had established her character so well, and you knew what kind of mother this was, and it just didn't make any sense that she had that reaction at the very end. It just felt really out of character. But number 2, it felt like a really weird take on how a parent would react in general. Like I can think of very few parents that would have that response to that. Like I mean, I know that they might get angry at Gwen and express anger towards Gwen, but I don't think they would just totally write off the son. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and also Gwen really should have prepared her for the scream. Like that was a part that I didn't get.
Yeah, it seemed like Gwen didn't know either, which was a weird thing. It's like, well, why is Gwen surprised by this? I mean, how it's just none of that held together very well at the end. But I don't know, it feels almost like maybe I have to wonder if the episode was tinkered with at some part. Like, maybe the mother's reaction at the end wasn't in the original script, and someone's like, no, we've got to make the ending darker, and because it was a carefully written character early on, and it's just this shift.
It was 2008, and there was sort of a dark trend, I suppose.
True.
So it's possible. But I guess that brings us to Fragments, which is the next episode. And in this one, they are investigating, I think, activity, like some kind. They were looking for like alien life forms or something. Was that what they were sensing? They were kind of vague at the beginning. I don't know. They thought it was alien life forms, but it was really bombs. Yeah, it was a trap. They walked into the building and they see bombs and they explode, and then we have a series of flashbacks. Basically, this is an interesting episode in that it's kind of a non-episode. It's kind of like there's not really like a story through the episode. It's more like an excuse to show you the backgrounds of the characters. And I mean, there's a thread. They get caught in the explosion, they get extracted to safety, and then they find out that Captain John was behind it. But it's really about the flashbacks. And so I guess number one, did you like that? Did this work for you as an episode, or did you find that frustrating, or what was your reaction?
No, I actually liked the flashbacks. I thought they were all pretty engaging. I mean, even when I could quibble about, hey, does that really fit with the continuity of the show? I enjoyed the flashbacks of stories in themselves. There wasn't any segment, because with a show made up of lots of little stories like this, it's easy for one of them to fall down and kind of weigh the episode down. But I was into all of them, so that's an accomplishment.
Now, whose backstory did you like the most, and whose did you like the least, if that even applies here?
Ooh, I hadn't thought about it that way. Let's see. So the first one, let's see. We got Jack first. That Jack was probably the one where I was running it through my head a lot, going, was he supposed to have been involved with Torchwood before any of this? I got the impression back, during the Doctor Who episodes where he heard about them, that he didn't know who they were. So that I don't know. It wasn't badly done, but it was the one where I most had the issue with trying to thread it into the plot of Captain Jack.
I think they did do a number of things to try to they were obviously fixing continuity issues in this episode and in the next one, and I think one of the things that they had him say, I think in the next episode, was they show him at Torchwood when they recover him in the next episode, and he says his timelines can't cross, so they have to put him in a cryogenic state. So if he's aware of that, maybe that explains some of the things that were but I had the same exact reaction that you had to it. I was like, I don't know. I need to go, but I also felt like I need to go back and check this. Like, it wasn't like I instantly knew, but like I was like I feel like that isn't when he's supposed to be there. Like I had the same reaction that you did, and I'm sure there are fans who have put chronologies online who can establish, that we could probably go to and check this stuff with.
Yeah, I mean, I specifically remember there's a conversation between him and the 10th Doctor when the 10th Doctor finds out that he's become a member of Torchwood and is very disapproving. And I feel like, I don't remember what episode it's in, but I feel like that's the one I want to go watch, because I'm like, is there, because my impression then was that Jack, was creating Torchwood, and why was Torchwood in Cardiff then? Because I thought it moved to Cardiff after the London operation, and I don't know. There was lots of stuff going in there.
I don't want to just pull things out of the air, because I remember that episode, but I don't remember it well enough to pin anything concrete down. But one thing I remember Jack saying was that Torchwood, like, the Doctor expresses some suspicion about Torchwood, and he says, "Oh no, you don't understand. I've worked it into something new. Like I've shaped this team." So I think, but I don't remember the specific wording, and I think there were other things said. So it's probably worth going and checking at some point. But we do see sort of how how he gets into Torchwood, which is kind of interesting. We see that Torchwood has always kind of had a Jack-like figure at the head of it, and even back in I think it was the Victorian. I don't know exactly what the era was when that happened. I can't.
Yeah,
remember.
They didn't give us a date to my recollection. They just kind of implied it's roughly 1900ish, give or take a decade, but.
But we also see how he, sort of inherits his position at Torchwood 3, and there was a pretty bad catastrophe there that, his boss Alex ended up killing everybody as a mercy killing, because he had looked into the future with this silver medallion, and then killed himself. So which is obviously kind of ominous given the next episode. But yeah, so that was Jax, and then Toshiko we find out was stealing blueprints for, what was it, a sonic modulator?
That woman looked familiar to me, and I thought, isn't she the woman who was in, I mean, maybe I'm just confusing actors, or maybe it was the same actress. They didn't intend it to be the same person, but it looked a lot to me like the woman who was making the fat pill, like the diet pills that like were aliens made out of people's
I have
fat.
to go back and watch that. I remember that episode, but
And she had a sonic weapon in that episode. She had a
well,
sonic pen or something. So I was wondering, is that a tie-in to that episode?
it's
But
possible. Yeah, maybe you're right. I mean, again, that's a pretty interesting episode too.
yeah,
That's
well,
a
that's the
Donna
first.
episode, right?
That's the first
Hmm.
Donna episode. Yeah, that's the one where they well, not the first, but the one where she becomes the companion.
Yeah.
Of course, she's in Runaway Bride, of course. But yeah, I don't know.
So
It just at the moment I thought, is that her? And
I
you know,
think
that's how she got her sonic pen. But
I think the only solution to this line of questioning we've been on is we're gonna have to go back and watch all of Doctor Who,
who
New Who,
again?
yeah,
Yeah,
uh,
that's.
you know,
Yeah.
so. Um, but yeah, but she ends up, her mother gets kidnapped and they make her steal these blueprints, and she ends up getting imprisoned by UNIT, and her rights get taken away from her, and Jack recruits her there. And the reason he recruits her is because she stole the blueprints to make the device, and it turns out that the blueprints themselves were flawed, and she just sort of compensated for the inaccuracies in the blueprint.
Yeah.
And so we learn, like we've always known Toshiko is good, but we learn just how good she is at that
Yeah.
in this episode. And so it really kind of crystallizes why she's what her position is in Torchwood, and why she's there. And I thought it was is a something about that backstory really worked because of the way that they've established her and Jack's relationship.
It did, yeah. I think that was definitely, like I said, I'm not sure which is my favorite, but that's the definite contender for my favorite.
It felt the most consistent to me, is how I would say it. Because the next one, Yanto, that felt like it was the least consistent somehow.
Yeah, that you're right. Yeah, I completely forgot about that one for the moment. Like when I was thinking about my favorite, because it just didn't. I don't know.
Well, it was like consistent with his personality as they presently have him, but it felt like it was really rubbing up against his history with Lisa and all. Do you know what I mean? Like it just like I don't know. It kind of because they were trying to sort of what aspect of it didn't work for me. They were trying to establish the love story between him and Jack in that episode, and I don't think that because we've all seen season 1. We know that there wasn't like heavy flirtation going on between the two of them until they became. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a thing that sort of changes in the show, and the reason that you sort of assume that doesn't happen is because he was still in love with Lisa and still grieving for Lisa. So I don't think he would have had those moments that he had, just based on what we know about his character and why he was at Torchwood and why what he was trying to do at that time with his cyber girlfriend.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, also, Yanto is just the most careful, grounded person. So him being the one that's kind of acting almost stalkery, going on. It's like I'm gonna get in this organization, and it just didn't feel like a very Ianto way to approach getting hired by Torchwood to me.
Yeah, I agree. Parts of it I could sort of see, like, because he does sort of fill a butler role, but it just seemed.
That aspect I agree, but his initial approach would have been fine, but it's like, his, moving in front of the car and standing out in the street and stuff. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know.
Like, I always had assumed that he probably wormed his way into that position to save his cyber girlfriend, but like.
That's true. If the show had made that more clear, if that'd have been part of his desperation, but it didn't read that way to me.
And that's the fundamental problem. They completely ignore that, and it was such an. It's a big. Love it or hate it, it's an episode that happened, and it's undeniable how important that would have been to the character. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I just feel like they should have had that in there, and they still could have worked in the storyline in the present with the love story between him and Jack, because I think the thing that's the hardest to wrap your head around is how he's in love with this guy who he might sort of see as partly responsible for what happened to his girlfriend. Do you know what I mean? Like, there was, you could see it always felt a little, because that episode was the episode, I believe, where he was calling Jack the monster and all that stuff. And I might have my episodes mixed up, but I think it was around that time. So I feel like that was something that did need to be resolved, but it would have been better done if they had dealt with sort of the cyber girlfriend aspect of the backstory, worked it in, and then sort of resolved any question marks that were still remaining in the present. But overall, it still worked. I just thought it was the least consistent. It wasn't that it was a bad backstory. It had its moments, but it just didn't feel totally consistent to me.
Yeah, it was fine. I mean, it was entertaining and all, but yeah, it was definitely the weakest. That's for sure.
And I think Owens was probably the most surprising to me.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I completely forgot about Owen's backstory. I remembered this episode, but I did not remember Owen's backstory at all. And I forgot just how much this really puts into place all of his. It's like, as a character, he makes total sense by the end of this episode. I feel like there were parts of him that didn't make sense to me, and I think we've talked about it in the past, where he just kind of is. He sometimes seems like an unnecessary prick. He just kind of has a chip on his shoulder for no apparent reason. This explains an awful lot. It also explains his reluctance to involve himself with Toshiko, and to involve himself emotionally with a lot of other, women, and kind of had the attitude that he had, where he's sort of like, just in it for the night kind of a thing. And also why he would throw himself fully into this totally unattainable time traveling woman. But I thought that was an interesting, because it starts out where it was also like a really well constructed mini episode. Like, his wife, initially we think she has early onset Alzheimer's, and I think this is a pretty. I know now you hear about early onset all the time, but this was pretty early to have that in a show. I think I don't remember really seeing it in TV and stuff until later than this. But they think it's early onset Alzheimer's, and turns out it's an alien parasite. And so when they bring her in, so first they think it's Alzheimer's. Then he insists that they do another MRI, and they do the other MRI, and they find out it's a tumor, and they're going to do emergency surgery on her to get the tumor out. And during the surgery, the parasite kills the doctors and kills her. And then Jack shows up, and that's when Owen meets Jack. And so I just kind of liked the circumstances under which the two of them meet. I liked the emotional journey of the Alzheimer's storyline. It felt very believable to me, even though it turn out not to be Alzheimer's. It was basically an Alzheimer's storyline.
Yeah, it's still a memory personality decay story. So,
and I could see how that would, and it showed us like this side of Owen that we haven't seen, but it totally fit the overall puzzle of Owen's character. So,
and he's a particularly strong actor on the show too, so I think that helped a lot with his story. I think he is has been one of the best people on the show.
Well, he's very good. It seems that like you really had to completely buy him as this almost a new person that you haven't seen before. He's in a relationship with his fiance. He's going to get married. He's grieving because she's got this Alzheimer's like condition and she's forgetting things. And we've never really seen this sort of tender side of Owen, this side of Owen where he is, I don't know, kind of like wants to be a family man but can't because of the condition that his wife has. And he's basically out of, because he promised her he's going to continue with the wedding and they're going to have a summer wedding, but he knows it's going to end badly. Or at least that's what but you also have to believe at this point in the story that he's a practicing doctor and that he's not a member of Torchwood and doesn't have that sort of. There's not that edginess to him that he has when he's at Torchwood, and it totally works. And if he wasn't able to make that shift, like I can see it in the hands of another actor not. You just wouldn't, but it's sort of like, well, he's still playing the old Owen, even though but it totally worked. And that really impressed me, him being to pull off that, make it feel part of the same character, yet an utterly different part of his life. And I don't know, I might consider this the best so far. The Tosh one and this one are the two that were my favorites. Yeah, I would agree. And I thought the Jack one was really good. But I felt like those. Yeah. I think it's right because we know what happens in the next episode. And spoilers for anybody who is listening, I think it's appropriate that their two were kind of the strongest, because that really makes the next episode. It leads right into the next episode.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so I don't know. This was an episode I enjoyed. I thought it was also a nice change of pace, because you sort of realize you're just sort of, okay, now we're getting some backstory, and it must be important that we're getting backstory one episode away from the finale.
Yeah.
And then when they get out, Captain John is back, and it appears Captain John is doing this out of jealousy and holding Gray, Jack's brother, prisoner in order to force him to come and see him again. And we learn in the next episode nothing could be further from the truth. So let's get into the next episode, which is Exit Wounds. Number one, what was just your reaction to this episode?
Well, I was glad it was quickly revealed that the whole jealousy thing wasn't the motivation, because I had a bit of a gap between watching the penultimate episode and the last episode there, and at the end of the last episode, it's like, really, that's going to be the big motivation for the big villain at the end is, oh, I really love you, but you don't love me back. Just I didn't buy it from that character we saw in the first episode. I mean, he did. He was bitter about Jack not reciprocating, but I didn't feel like he was megalomaniacally going to come up with an elaborate plot over it, kind of thing.
Yeah. I figured he'd be more passive aggressive, if anything, about it.
Exactly. So I was like, oh, that's a stretch. So when it's revealed that wasn't the case, I was like, okay, good. I'm glad they're keeping this character somewhat consistent. I don't know. I think this episode on the whole I liked, but I think the biggest weakness in it was Gray. I don't feel like I ever believed he was his brother. I don't feel like he gave a performance that really involved me in his pain. It's like that was the gaping hole at the center of an otherwise pretty decent episode.
Yeah, I would agree that his character, it felt like they just grabbed somebody who was on spring break and put a slightly futuristic outfit on him, and because his performance was very deadpan, and maybe that was just because he was supposed to be hollow inside or something. I don't know, but it didn't.
Yeah, it's not an interesting acting choice. Yeah. Even if you can justify it, it's still boring.
Yeah, it didn't pull me in. You didn't really believe it. He didn't have like a spark. There was like a spark missing with this character. And it would almost have been better if they just used John, because Captain John has a spark. Like, he's got some, like,
yes.
Even if that annoyed you, I know you would still at least find him an interesting person.
He could have been the villain at the end. I just would have needed him to have had a better motivation. That's all.
I would argue, though, that Captain John kind of saves the episode in a lot of ways.
Definitely.
Because he really grounds it in, like, the conflict that does exist. It really becomes sort of, the interesting thing about it is that Captain John is being forced to harm Jack when he doesn't want to. And his personal struggle with that is kind of the interesting conflict in the episode.
And, he's the Lando Calrissian of the episode.
Yeah. Yeah, he's sort of like... And I think they do a good job of sort of planting all the seeds they need to, so that, like leading up to him sort of really revealing what's going on. When he keeps saying, it's important that you understand that. It's important, it's very heavy-handed, but I thought it was very, very effective. But yeah, I would agree. The Gray was the weakest part of the episode, and I think it's because he just kind of, I don't know. They made him like I don't know. I mean, I hated him, so they got that right. Like, I really didn't like him, but like I think like I hated him for the wrong reasons. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, one of my thoughts watching him too is that, going back to the flashbacks they've done in previous episodes, the kid who plays Jack as a child, like, I get no sense of Jack from that kid at all. Yeah. Absolutely nothing. Nothing about him resembles Jack in any way. And the guy that they cast as adult Gray, it's like, I believe he's the brother of that child Jack, who is in no way Jack. It's like, instead of casting a guy who resembled him, they should have cast a guy who resembled adult Jack. It's like if there was some feeling of there being a brother, but no, they cast it based on the child actors rather than Jack, and that was like completely the wrong direction to go.
They should have got Tom Cruise. That's who they should have got.
Tom
Tom
Cruise.
Cruise.
Tom Cruise would have actually done pretty well with that, I think. But
Uh, but yeah, I don't know. I think yeah, no. He again. I couldn't get past the spring break vibe that the Gray character was just oozing.
yeah,
It just didn't. And also there was just like no there was the voice just felt all wrong when he was telling I liked the idea. I liked the idea of this
yeah,
brother being, tortured by these like insect aliens of some kind, and that sort of changing him and filling him with resentment towards Jack. I thought that was that worked great because it was I don't know, it was a very direct path to what they were trying to do, and
yeah.
I just didn't but then whenever he was on screen doing his thing, it just never really came together for me.
No, and it also, I mean, I don't know, his after, him then going after all the Torchwood people after he'd already buried Jack. It's like, well, Jack, as far as you know, Jack's already effectively dead and buried. Why? I mean, if you were killing all the Torchwood people before you did that, then it would be a show for him. See, look, everything you love is going to die. But he did it in the wrong order. You don't bury the guy, then destroy everything he loved, because then he's not. I mean, obviously he was around because he got frozen and everything, but that wouldn't have been part of Gray's plan. That just is something that happened.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, there were some problems with that. There were some serious problems. How did you feel about Jack's reaction to being buried alive?
Well, it's complicated because it's like I think being buried for 2,000 years would have more of a psychological toll on you, even if you're immortal.
Yeah.
Than I mean, he was very, very. I kind of knew he would be, but I mean, I wasn't surprised by it. I was kind of braced for it to have no real psychological effect on him at all. But that would really drive anyone completely insane.
Yeah. Also, I think if you're immortal like he is, you would be able to get out of there. Do you know what I mean? Within that 2,000 year period.
You could dig inch by inch every time. But,
yeah, because I mean, you just keep dying on your way up, but you do eventually probably get out of there. Unless he was in like a permanent catatonic state or something. But then that kind of defeats the torture aspect of it. So
yeah, exactly.
What did you think of what he ends up? So there's like all these explosions through the city, and then they start using the rift manipulator, and the end result. There's a number of horrible things that happen in the city that are bad, but the big thing is there's a power plant that is going to go into meltdown, and
yes.
So at the end of the episode, the real sort of emotional punch of the episode is Owen goes in there to stop the meltdown, and Toshiko is trying to help him from her station, and Toshiko gets shot by Gray while she's trying to help Owen, and Owen discovers that he basically has to stay there forever and slowly get destroyed by the irradiated cooling fluid as the whole facility gets sealed, and so it's basically he and Toshiko die. I don't know, what did you think of that? Number one, like
the whole automatic door that automatically closes things felt very much like a movie and not like something nuclear power plants would actually have, for one thing. It's like, oh, sorry, the automatic door is shut. There's no way to open it now. Sorry. It just, that was very cinematic. But I think emotionally the whole thing worked. I thought it was a very touching scene between the two. I feel like Tosh and Owen are, I think, over the course of the season especially, have just become two of the best characters on the show, which also made it really unfortunate that they're dying. It's like it made it very touching that they died, but on the other hand, it's like, oh, They're not in the show anymore. I can see why people like you that watched the show from the beginning didn't like third season as much
Yeah.
because a lot of the show is dead now.
No, I mean, I think on the one hand, I thought it was a really effective and emotional sort of departure for these characters. Like I like, especially there's a really clever line in there too where he's freaking out and he's like, I'm gonna
Yeah.
go out in a rage, and it's like classic Owen behavior. And he's like, give me one good reason, and she says like, you're breaking my heart. And it was like the last thing that I would have thought of to say, but it felt like exactly what she would have said. So I thought that was like
Yeah.
a really cool sort of line of dialogue. And also it immediately calmed him down, and then he sort of accepted his fate. But then at the end of it, you're like, but now we don't have these characters anymore.
Yeah.
And I still don't know how I feel about it, because I feel like the show. I mean, I think I've been outvoted by most of the fans. I think most fans really like season 3. Like, I think season 3 is considered sort of the high point for a lot of people, and I just feel like with the death of these characters, that's when the show really because again, I don't know how much 24 you watch, and I know I talk a lot about 24 when I talk about Torchwood, but it's because they are so close. There's so many similarities between these shows, and one of the big ones is 24's willingness to kill off big characters. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's like it's almost like a to the point of self-parody. You have significant characters getting killed in unexpected ways, and in very sort of ways that are sort of maybe a little cheaply melodramatic.
Yeah.
But I think here, by doing this, it sort of solidifies that in my mind of, okay, now it's like really transitioning into becoming 24 to me.
It's I saw the third season in isolation. I hadn't seen anything before that, and I think if I watched it, I think I probably will still consider it good in its own right. But like I said, I get how they really gutted the show. I mean, I'm curious. I am curious if what the reason behind Owen and Tosh being written out of the show was. Was it an actors choosing to leave thing? Was it a story choice to write them out? I'd be kind of curious about that.
I don't know. I wasn't able to find that last night either. I suspect the way it feels to me, it feels like it was a creative decision. It doesn't feel like it was a
it was definitely planned earlier in the season. The question I kind of have is, sometimes actors decide this is the last. I'm not renewing my contract after the season, and so it could, and it could have been written into the season and been a choice by the actor to leave. And if it's a case of the actors wanting to leave and them trying to work that into the show, they did a great job with that.
Yeah,
so
no, I would agree with that.
Show.
I would agree with that.
If on the other hand they decided let's get rid of these two characters, it's a terrible choice.
Yeah,
so,
I don't know what it was. I haven't really been able to find anything on it. I haven't looked too hard though, to be honest. But I think that I would agree 100% with that. But either way, I think in the end, I still don't like it. I think well, let me rephrase that. I really like the way this happened. I thought this was probably one of the most moving death scenes that you could have in a TV show. Like, death scenes in TV shows. Like, I used to watch The Walking Dead, and I would watch Game of Thrones, and I find I never feel the emotion that they want me to feel when a character dies on one of those shows, because they pave the way too much, they telegraph too much, and it's just too over the top. Here, I thought this was really effective. You really did not want Toshiko to die. You did not want Owen to be trapped in that containment unit decaying for the next however many years, and it was just awful. You just were like, oh, this is terrible to happen to these two people, and it was moving the way their performances were. So I thought it was effective, but I don't like the end result of them not being in the show. I think it's and I think the show, again, I've been outvoted, I'm sure, but I feel like the show really loses something in the third season. I think the third season is really well done. I want to be clear about this. The third season's a really great series, and I thought that it was really entertaining. Like, when I watched it, I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. The problem I have with the third season is I have no desire to go back and watch any of those individual episodes. But with the old Torchwood, there's a lot of standalone episodes you can just watch independently and enjoy. And I really prefer that. Like, I like having it has enough of the overarching narrative. There's, you have the gray thing going on, which is kind of interesting, and it sort of kicks in at the start of the season and comes back at the end, and you get hints of it throughout, but it's nothing major. I like that kind of thing. I'm really exhausted of shows that are just a long story, and then when you're done with them, there's no point in watching an individual episode anymore. I have movies for that. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I don't need TV. I don't need TV to be like movies for me. And so I feel like the first two seasons of this, it's really fun, engaging, sort of weird science fiction. I don't know what genre you would put it in, because it's almost got like a trauma film edge to it at times. But it's I really like the feel of the first two seasons, and when they make those creative changes, season 3 and 4, I still think it's good writing and good television, but it's not Torchwood to me anymore at that point. It's not what makes Torchwood unique, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. And I mean, they had to change the format of the show at that point, though. It's like you couldn't, if they tried to do another season in the same model of this season, it's like, man, it's like they've, going in a new direction, I think, was the only point. Because it's like, I mean, what have they got left with the ensemble they've got with doing the typical plots? I mean, because I mean, as we've talked before, the whole Jack and Gwen thing, that whole chemistry thing doesn't work for me, at least. And Ianto's a character. I really like Ianto as a kind of a person, but he's not the most interesting character in the show. He's very solid and together, and it's like there isn't a whole lot of plot elements to pull out of Ianto. And,
I would agree. I think it would really depend on who they brought in. To flesh out because if they brought in Captain John, he has enough chemistry with people, but we've only seen him in
true.
We only saw him in like single episodes, and there's always a big difference between getting that breakout character in a couple episodes and then having them be a full-time cast member. So you might discover when they're in a full season, oh, this actor can't do this really important thing that you need them to do. But just from what we saw, that would have been an option. I don't know. Could they? I guess they couldn't bring Susie back. Even that would be pretty tough to.
I think bringing her back. Like I said, they really pushed it with the resurrection glove on bringing Owen back once. I mean, that was already like, bringing someone back from the dead again would just be like, oh man.
But Martha Jones would have been an option. Getting Martha Jones back in might have worked.
Yeah, I don't think they could have got her back in though. I don't know. I forget why. She was doing something else at the time, so I think. I've forgotten what it is at this point. It's still so long ago now, but I don't think she would have been available at that time.
But you're probably right. They probably did have to change up the thing. I don't know. I guess my issue with where it went is that it becomes a lot like other shows at that point to me. It becomes a really good show of that kind. It's just, I don't know, there was something very unique about the first. Like, wouldn't you say, like, I feel like I've seen all this stuff before in other shows when I watch Torchwood, but not together like this. Like, not all, like, I don't know how to put it. There's something different about Torchwood.
Well, honestly, I'm glad I watched it now and not then, because, I mean, it's what's refreshing about Torchwood watching it now is that episodic shows are a lot rarer.
Yeah.
And it's like watching, it's like I don't think I would have appreciated the show as much if I watched it in, 2008 or whenever it started. I would have been like, okay, another kind of X-Files-y kind of thing, whatever. I would have probably taken a little more for granted. Now, because like I said, there are shows I like that are season-long stories, like Legion does that, and I think Legion's fantastic. The Americans just wrapped up. The Americans is fantastic. There are shows I like that, but for every one that's great, there's about 9 that are really lackluster, and it's so hard to do, but everyone's trying to do it all the time. And so now watching a show that's episodic, I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. I'm happy to have this again.
Well, and I think and even I mean I saw it not too long after it came out, but still I was it was a little bit after, and I had been I my friend Evan had to talk me into it. It was not an easy thing for him to do, and if it was anybody else, I probably would not have heeded the advice. But I trust his opinion, and so he had kept talking about this show. He's like, you really got to watch it, and I don't know. I've never been much of a spin-off guy. Spin-offs to me are bad news. I just don't like spin-offs. I didn't watch all of the spin-off Star Wars movies. I don't watch spin-offs. And so
yeah.
But what oh, go ahead.
I mean, I was watching Doctor Who at the time this was running, and it says something that I never watched a single episode of this show. It's like I was just like, no, I'm not even going to look at it, even though I'm watching Doctor Who every time it comes on. But
it was kind of like, I guess it was a little bit like how Frasier was as a spin-off from Cheers. Not to compare them, because I think there's definitely not, they're miles apart in terms of everything.
Yeah.
But in that, it's like, okay, we're going to make a new show. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're going to make a new show around this one character, and it's going to feel different than the show that spawned it. And so it's set in the universe, but it's definitely there are way more things that are very unique to Jack Harkness's character going on in the show that just don't happen in Doctor Who. And so I know I just kind of, I don't know, it was I thought it really carved out a really nice niche for itself. But yeah, so I don't know, I guess what was your overall impression of this season versus the first season?
Oh, we talked a little bit about this in the last podcast, but there weren't as many standout episodes in this one. I think actually the second to last episode is one of the standouts. I think that was just a very, very strong episode. But it was very consistent. There was nothing. There weren't any episodes also that leap out to me as being terrible episodes this season. I think it hit a nice solid pace. I think the characters were better, or at least I understood them better. I mean, I can remember spending a lot more time kind of rolling my eyes at the characters in the first season. Like first season Owen is a much harder character to take at times for reasons I couldn't even get a handle on. Whereas I got Owen this season. I was like, I always, even when he was being a jerk, I was like, yeah, I understand why he's being a jerk here.
Yeah, I feel like he's a puzzle who finally made sense in the end. Like, once they put all the pieces on the table, it worked. And I don't think they were planning it from the start. I don't know, but they constructed him well over the course of the show.
That's always the question. It's like, if I went back and watched first season, would Owen make sense to me the whole way through? Was it because I didn't have enough information, or was it because they just didn't have his character tuned right? I can't tell you, as I haven't gone back and watched it, but I would be curious about that.
And yeah, so I think one of the big differences is definitely the finale. I thought for this season was better than the finale for first season. But that's not saying much. That's I think that was.
Well, it's not.
Yeah,
it's because once again it's flawed. The whole Gray storyline really doesn't work. But the departure of Tosh and Owen is handled. That scene could have been terrible. I mean, the whole "you're breaking my heart" line. It's like, on paper that sounds like. And us talking about it sounds like total cheese.
Yeah,
but it's like these characters were so well drawn and so well acted that it worked. It was actually pretty moving to me.
No, this is the kind of show where you can definitely see how important acting is. Like, it definitely comes to the surface in a scene like that, because it's exactly like you said. Like, on paper, that sounds huge. It sounds way too sentimental. It sounds like it sounds almost like old timey, like something that would have It just doesn't. But when she said it, you really believed it, and also the moment in which she said it was very well chosen. And so again, like I said, it was like the last thing that I would have thought. Like, if I were her, there were a million other things I would have said before I got to that, but none of them would have quite had the punch the way she said it. So I, and again, a lot of it does come down to the acting. But yeah, so So I guess we're done with season 2. We got that under our belt now. Now we just, who knows? Maybe we'll do season 3, and if we're really ambitious, we'll do what is it? Miracle Day? Is that the
Miracle Day,
Yeah.
which I've only seen I think first maybe second episode of that.
Here's what I will say: Miracle Day is so interesting. Like Miracle Day is a very interesting season, regardless of what you think about it. You
A
can't.
lot to talk about.
It just has so many. When I think back on it, I really like the overall shape of it. Do you know what I mean? Like I like all like it has a lot of different things going on, and and at times it almost reminds me of The Godfather 2 because of some of the flashback sequences. But it's really bizarre as well, and it's also, I think it was a joint American and
It was.
British. So
I think Showtime, I think, was running it in America, if I recall.
I think it was that or Stars, or I don't remember. I'm not good with the movie channels, but
Mhm.
but that definitely had an effect on the end result. And I think it would be worth talking about if we do it. But it's also, I think, a longer season. Actually, I might be wrong on that. I always get that confused. In fact, I can answer that. Yeah, Miracle Day is only 10 episodes, and for some reason, I always think there's like a ridiculous number of episodes with Miracle Day.
It feels a lot longer.
I don't know why. I don't know why I feel like every time I'm like, no, it does 24. They do like 24 episodes of it. Like I think, I don't know. I'll have to, if we get back to it, we'll maybe dig into that a little bit. I think it's because Children of the Earth, they drop down to 5. And then contrasted with that, Miracle Day feels twice as big, so that might be it. But yeah, so all right, so we will let you go. This Friday, we were going to originally talk about Last Hurrah for Chivalry. We have changed that to another film because we want to bring a guest on, and the guest can't make it until next month. So I think we're going to be doing Blood Brothers this Friday, and I'm looking forward to that. And definitely check out our other channels. And until next time, we will talk to you later.